Okay, welcome to this GCSE RS revision video. This is video on relationships in the themes topic of the EduCast GCSE course. And this is video 3 of kind of 5 videos. And we're going to cover the 5 precepts, the purpose of sex in this particular video. So what are these 5 precepts? Really key to understand this because it's key to understanding ethics from a Roman Catholic perspective. And remember, we're covering this course from different traditions of Christianity. And so this is a really easy, useful way of understanding Roman Catholic ethics as it relates to both this topic, relationships, and the other topic where ethics comes up in life and death issues. So medical ethics like abortion and euthanasia, really relevant to. And so Roman Catholic ethics is formed by something called natural moral law, and its attitudes to sex are then formed by this teaching on ethics, natural moral law. Aquinas developed this theory on natural law back in the 13th century, and it's the idea is that you have this way of thinking about human nature, that it's functional, that it has a purpose or a teleos, and you just have to think really hard, and you'll see what we should be for, what our function should be. And he looked across life and thought about the different ways in which we function, the different ways in which we are aimed at, our purposes, and he decided there were 5 basic purposes to life. The first one is very important, perhaps in some discussion of contraception, the preservation of life, the preservation of the innocent, but really comes up under abortion and euthanasia. So really remember the idea of the preservation. Each of them is described as the preservation of life is the first one. The one that's really relevant to what we're doing at the minute, which will come up for in general for contraception and for sexual ethics in terms of relationships of different kinds, is the preservation of the species, or the continuation of the species through reproduction. And there are 3 other preservations: preservation of children through education, preservation of orderly society, preservation of worship. So these are important things, central things in Catholic ethical teaching. And it's out of these primary precepts that Aquinas then develops secondary, what are called principles, that fulfill and maintain the primary precepts as you apply them to contraception, same-sex marriage, and adultery, and divorce, and everything else, euthanasia, abortion. What is natural moral law then? It's really important we understand that this is a system of law based on a close observation of human nature, based on the values Aquinas thought were intrinsic to human nature, that can be deduced and applied independent of any sort of human thinking or human law, and even independent of the Bible, although it should coincide with the Bible if your thinking is right. Then the 5 primary precepts, Aquinas stated these were the fundamental laws set down by God that we can observe even without having a revelation like the Bible, just by using logic and reasoning and thinking to the reason of a thing. A human should follow these laws and apply them to decision making throughout life. Sexual relationships come in. Sexual relationships are an important part of being a human. Sex for Christians is seen as a gift from God and part of God's creation. It allows for the continuation. Remember that phrase, the continuation of the human species is the second of the primary precepts. The purpose of sex for Roman Catholics is the continuation of the species. And I think most people would say it's an important part of our human identity. An expression of physical love for others. Now, Christians aren't big fans of promiscuity, especially Catholics, having a number of casual sexual relationships. isn't even what liberal Christians would agree with, because it's not loving. It's not loving your neighbor as you love yourself, to use them, as it were. So, in general, nearly all Christians regard promiscuity, casual sexual relationships, as a sin, or at least a mistake. Because sex in Christianity should be part of a committed relationship between two people who have deep feelings for each other, or better, stronger statements of that from Catholic and Anglican Church would be within marriage. Sex can result in children. Fidelity in sexual relationships, therefore, is really important for the upbringing of children and by two parents. The evidence is in 40 years of children's experience. If children are brought up in families that are chaotic, where there are multiple sexual partners with the parents, then they don't do as well as when they have stable parents, as it were. So sex is a really powerful human instinct and drive. It's linked with procreation, and in particular for Catholics, rightly ordered sexuality results in procreation, is the Catholic teaching. But for the development of successful and widely available contraception has been an issue. In particular, the contraceptive pill has allowed the act of sex to be divorced from the act of procreation. Therefore, people are able to have sex without becoming pregnant, using the pill and condoms and other forms of contraception. So this has significantly changed attitudes towards sexual activity. So for Christians, promiscuity is not acceptable. Sex is a gift that should take place within a marriage, a gift given by God that is considered holy and sacred, perhaps part of the sacrament of marriage, the consummation of the marriage. Sex should only be done with the person you love. Casual sex, for all Christians, devalues people and devalues the sex itself. It becomes meaningless. Concerns from some Christians about children being born outside of the home environment are, it seems, with some evidence, justified, given the results of what we see happens to children. So one of the things that Christians emphasize is chastity. Chastity. Sometimes it's called abstinence. To be chaste, to experience chastity, is to promise not to have sex until marriage. And this is the traditional view within Christianity. It's an unusual view today. It's not something that our culture advertises or encourages, it seems. But in traditional Christianity, this is when a person remains chaste, a virgin until marriage. And you might think it odd, but it's maybe not odd. But in America, which is a highly religious country, Christians commit to this. And there's an idea of wearing a ring, not a wedding ring, but wearing it on the wedding finger as part of the silver ring thing, or True Love Waits movement, which highlights a person's choice not to have sex until marriage. And when married, the person will replace this with this silver ring with their wedding ring, which is often gold, as it were. Sex outside marriage and sex before marriage. Well, celibacy is different to chastity. What is celibacy? Celibacy is the decision never to have a sexual relationship. In the Roman Catholic faith, priests and monks and nuns take the vow of celibacy. It's made as a positive choice of lifestyle in order to dedicate one's life to the service of God. Priests must be celibate so they can fully dedicate themselves to the church. In 1139, it was made law in the Catholic Church that priests must not marry. Before that, it had been allowed, and now there are some Catholics, such as in America, argue for the optional celibacy of priests. Now, not all Christians agree with this. This is a view in the Catholic Church. But sexual immorality is such that celibacy is an important commitment. Now, within Christians more widely, that is singleness is a choice. Maybe not a permanent choice, but a choice to remain single, not to have romantic or sexual relationships until marriage, or perhaps never, is another way of talking about this. Certainly one that Paul in the Bible says. He He says, I wish you were all as me, perhaps single,